Sam starts us off with a tapped Steam Vents. John plays a Rejuvenating Springs. Tom plays a Timber Crown Pathway and taps it for good old turn 1 Soul Ring. Extra plays a Swamp and a Wayfarer's Bauble, then passes back to Sam. Sam plays a Dragon Skull Summit and a Fellwire Stone, then passes. John plays an Island and casts Kiora's Follower. He also passes. Tom plays a Plains and casts Toski, Bearer of Secrets, before passing to Extra. Extra plays a Plains, then taps 2 and sacks Wafer's Bauble to get another Plains, then passes the turn to Sam. Sam plays a Sulphur Falls for turn, then taps out for his commander, Don Andres the Renegade, and passes. John first casts Nature's Lore to get a Breeding Pool, paying 2 life to have it come in untapped. He plays an island for turn. He untaps his other island with Kiora's Follower and uses the mana to cast Gyre Engineer, before passing to Tom. Tom plays a Sundown Pass for turn, then swings at a defenseless Extra with Toski, drawing 1 upon dealing damage. He casts Wrathful Raptors in his second main, then passes it to Extra. Extra plays a Swamp and taps out for Veto, Fanatic of Aklazoth. He passes to Sam. Sam plays a Chivalry for turn. He casts Hostage Taker, exiling Tom's Soul Ring, and immediately paying 1 mana to cast it for himself. This triggers Don Andres, and Sam makes 2 tap treasures. Sam swings his commander at John, who doesn't block, then passes the turn. John plays a Blaststone for turn, then casts a Midnight Clock, followed by everybody's favorite, Seedborn Muse. He passes the turn to Tom. On Tom's upkeep, Midnight Clock gets an hour counter. In his main phase, he casts Rite of Passage and plays a tapped Stomping Ground for turn. He attacks Extra with Toski again, and Extra blocks with Veto. This triggers Rite of Passage, and Toski gets a 1/1 counter. Tom moves to his end step, which John uses to activate Midnight Clock 3 times to put 3 hour counters on it. The turn then moves to Extra. On Extra's upkeep, Midnight Clock gets an hour counter. He plays a Swamp for turn, then casts Cleveleno, First of the Blessed, followed by a Blood Artist. He swings Veto at John, targeting Veto with the Cleveleno trigger. John takes the hit, and on Extra's end step, John activates Midnight Clock 3 more times. The turn then moves back to Sam. On Sam's upkeep, Midnight Clock gets an hour counter. He plays a Morphic Pool for turn. He casts Vanquisher's Banner, naming Pirate. Additionally, he casts Cunning Rhetoric before passing. And on Sam's end step, John activates Midnight Clock twice and uses Beast Within to destroy the Vanquisher's Banner. John then moves to his turn. On his upkeep, John's Midnight Clock gets its last counter, and John shuffles his hand and graveyard into his library and draws 7, while exiling Midnight Clock. He plays a Hinterland Harbor for turn. He casts Replicating Ring, followed by Court of Garenbrit, becoming the Monarch as the enchantment enters. He then casts Viral Drake and the Millennium Calendar. He passes, drawing on EOT due to the Monarch effect. On his turn, Tom plays a Plains, then Nature's Lures for a Forest, before casting his own commander, Wayta. He immediately activates her and has Toski fight his own Wrathful Raptors. This triggers both Rite of Passage and the Raptors, putting 2 1/1 counters on Toski and the Raptors each, thanks to Wayta. And Tom has the Raptors deal 2 damage twice to John's Seedborn. Seedborn dies, and Blood Artist triggers with Extra draining Tom for 1. Tom then swings at John with Toski and the Raptors, and John again declares no blocks. Tom draws 2 thanks to Toski and steals the Monarch, consequently drawing an additional card as he passes the turn. Extra plays a Plains, then immediately goes to combat, attacking a tapped out Tom with Cleveleno, targeting himself with his own trigger. Extra steals the Monarch on combat damage, Then in his second main, casts March of the Canonized. For X equals 4, creating 4 1/1 vampires with lifelink. Extra passes, drawing to the Monarch trigger. On Sam's turn, he cycles Xander's Lounge, drawing a card. He plays a Mountain for turn. He casts a Nightscape Familiar and a Wild Magic Sorcerer. He chooses to go for the biggest threat, Tom, and swings everything at him while he can. Sam passes, and on end of turn, John activates Blast Zone to put 2 counters on it, then taps every permanent he can before moving to his turn. On John's untap, Millennium Calendar gets 10 time counters. On his upkeep, Replicating Ring also gets a counter, while Court of Garenbrig puts a 1/1 counter on Cura's Follower and 1 on Gyre Engineer. In his main phase, John plays a tapped Vivid Grove, then casts his commander, Xolatoyac, the Smiling Flood, putting a flood counter on Rejuvenating Springs. John then activates the Millennium Calendar, putting 10 more counters on it. On end of turn, Xolatoyac triggers, untapping all of John's permanents with counters on them. Tom then moves to his turn, pulling a Rootbound Crag and casting Arcane Signet. He follows it up with a Fiend Lash, equipping it to Toski. He attacks John with Toski and extra with the Wrathful Raptors. John blocks with his Viral Drake, putting a 1/1 counter on Toski before dying, and extra blocks the Raptors with a Vampire token. Rite of Passage, Blood Artist, and Wrathful Raptors all trigger, with Toski and the Raptors getting 2 more 1/1 counters, extra draining Tom for 2, and Tom dealing 2 damage to extra in revenge. Tom then passes to extra. On extra's upkeep, March of the Canonized triggers, thanks to extra having enough devotion, and makes a 4/3 demon. Extra then casts Champion of Dusk, drawing 7 and losing 7 life. He plays a Plains, then casts the enchantment half of Promise of Aquazot. Extra swings Veto at Tom, then passes. On his end step, Promise triggers, and extra sacks Cloveleno, populating the existing demon token, and making another tapped 4/3 demon to Cloveleno trigger, and drawing a card. Blood Artist also triggers, draining Tom for 1, and finally, extra also draws the Monarch before the turn moves to Sam. Sam casts Siphon Insight, targeting John, exiling one of the top 2 cards of his library, and putting the other on the bottom. He immediately flashes back Siphon Insight, targeting John again. He plays Manamo, School at Water's Edge, which is what he exiled from John's library. He attacks Tom with Don Andres and the Wild Magic Sorcerer, and Tom blocks Don Andres with his own commander. Rite of Passage triggers, and Wayta gets 2 1/1 counters. Sam then passes, but not before John activates his Millennium Calendar, putting 20 counters on it, then untapping it with Cura's Follower, and reactivating it to put 40 additional counters on it. Before he can move to his turn though, Tom decides enough is enough, and activates Wayta, having Toski fight his Wrathful Raptors, putting 2 1/1 counters on both of them, and triggering both Fiend Lash and the Raptors, dividing the Fiend Lash damage between Extra and John, and sending both Raptor triggers at John, killing him. Tom then takes his turn, immediately swings Toski at Extra and the Raptors at Sam. Sam's Cunning Rhetoric triggers, and he exiles a top card of Tom's library. Sam then blocks the Raptors with Nightscape Familiar, and Extra blocks Toski with another Vampire token. Before damage, Sam also regenerates Nightscape Familiar. On damage, Rite of Passage triggers twice, then Tom sends both Fiend Lash triggers at Extra and both Raptor triggers at Sam, while Extra drains Tom for 1 with his own Blood Artist trigger. In his second main, Tom casts Illusionist Bracers, equipping them to Wayta, and then casting Boros Charm, making all of his permanents indestructible until end of turn. He moves in for the kill, activating Wayta and copying the trigger with the Bracers, making Toski fight the Raptors twice, which is enough to kill Extra and Sam with the collective Fiend Lash and Raptor damage triggers. And Tom walks home with the dub.